Hey, what's going on, party people? Robert Jenkins here. I want to welcome you to episode 11 of the North Star podcast. I'm coming to you as usual from the seat perilous, and I have to confess to you that I am somewhat bothered in my spirit. And there's a good reason for it. It's not bothered over trivial pursuits and trivial matters. What I'm bothered about is some of the news articles that I have printed off to you, and printed off today to read out to you and kind of highlight and look on the freedom, the principles of freedom. So kind of my new format, what I want to do is every show I want to try to include a quote. In the black community, we claim to have a great deal of respect for our elders. And I particularly I was raised to respect my elders and to, respect my ancestors, which is an extension of your elders. You know, African culture, there's ancestral reverence some people call it ancestral worship, but it's really ancestral reverence, the way I understand it. And so what I want to do then in many shows, if not all shows, I'm going to try to open them up with a quote from the ancestors. And in this case, the gentleman that I'm going to quote is not an ancestor yet. He's an elder. And it's Thomas Sowell. For those of you who don't know, Thomas Sowell is a black professor of economics. I believe he's with the Stanford Institute. He's world renowned for his scholarly ability. He has numerous books. They do tend to be sort of scholarly, so it's sometimes they're easy to read, sometimes they're not as easy to read, depending on what your inclination and level of reading comprehension might be. You might find them more or less digestible. However, I find the guy to be an invaluable voice of reason and clarity, and he's one of these brothers that's they're going to call him conservative. So of course he's going to be an Uncle Tom or a self-hating black or something like that. But the funny thing is, most black people that I've ever met in my life are conservatives and just don't know it. And I've been black 45 years. I wouldn't be anything other than black. So I don't speak from a position of not wanting to be what I am. In fact, I speak from the heart as someone who is exceedingly glad to be exactly who I am. So I'm going to quote Thomas Sowell, and one of the things that he says is that you cannot take any people of any color and exempt them from the requirements of civilization, which includes work, behavioral standards, personal responsibility, and all of the other basic things that the clever intelligentsia disdain. You cannot do that without ruinous consequences to them and to society at large. Now, this is one of the things that this kind of keeps me vexed in my spirit. When I say these things, I'm not saying I'm out of any desire to be negative. In fact, I'm saying them as a father would talk to his children. I'm saying them as someone who loves you dearly and therefore tells you the truth and speaks from the heart. One of the issues that we have, as far as I can tell, in our community, and y'all forgive me, it's a little warm in here. I got all these studio lights on me here at Moon Mind Productions. But one of the things that vexes me is that we as a black community, as a black race, one of the things that we have allowed those who say that they are our friends to do is to tell us that we don't have to be responsible for the requirements of civilization, just like every other race. Every other group of people out there seems to have an innate understanding that there are certain things that the individual must do. And that is the result, or really that is the root of conservatism, is understanding that you, the individual, have primary responsibility for you, yourself, and your situation. And that I'm convinced that I listen to so many black people out there talking, commentators and, whoever they might be, news personalities, whatever. And the way they talk, man, you would think that we still live in 1908 in the Deep South, and the Ku Klux Klan is riding around, daring us to try to come out and vote and daring us to be citizens of this society. And it really makes me exceedingly angry. It keeps me vexed in my soul, because that is simply not the case. We live in the year 2019, in case anybody out there is unaware of this. And I'm a 45-year-old man. I've traveled far and wide. I've had many jobs, many positions of responsibility all across the United States. And one thing that I've noticed is that most people out there are people of goodwill, including most white people out there are white people of goodwill, meaning that they are not actively engaged in any form of racism. So that's why it's so vexatious and so upsetting to hear the average black so-called intelligentsia out there talking like we still live in 1902. And like I said, you got night riders and white sheets out there running around trying to stop us from exercising the basic priority, the basic privileges of this society. And I am convinced when I was a young man, we used to talk about black people need to uplift themselves from mental slavery. And that is one of the things that we seriously need to do. Back in those days, I was saying it because it was, we was conscious brothers and sisters wearing our little silk shirts, dancing, doing little cut head dances, listening to X Clan and all that kind of stuff. And so we was always talking about knowledge of self and being conscious and being positive. And one of the things that we didn't have any depth, but we were on the right track. With the passage of time, I've gained a little bit of depth and a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of understanding, I would hope. A little more insight into this. And actually, that conclusion that we reached back in 1992, 93, 94, it was correct. It's about personal responsibility. This is why Malcolm X is one of my spiritual mentors, somebody that means a lot to me, because he understood the concept that everything that you want to do, you want to reach out, you want to attain something, it almost doesn't matter how racist the society you live in is. We black people claim to be the supreme being. We claim to be descended from kings and queens. We claim to believe in God. If all that's true, then nobody should actually be able to hold us back. Much less today when most people aren't even trying to hold us back. See, what happens is we get to be ashamed of our own behavior because we know that we are lacking in the way we behave, in the standards of civilization that we display within our own community and with our own race. We understand this and we know deep down inside that we are lacking severely. But it is painful to say, I need to get my act together. I need to do better with this in my life. So instead of taking personal responsibility, we like to say, it's racism. It's Donald Trump. And those are all excuses. And I think anybody rationally listening to this with an open mind and being honest knows that those are all excuses. When your life ain't together, it's easier to look out and blame society and Trump and whoever else for your shortcomings than it is to look deep within yourself and say, I need to do better. So Thomas Sowell says you cannot take any people of any color and exempt them from the requirements of civilization, including work, behavioral standards, personal responsibility, and the other basic things that the clever intelligentsia disdain. And you can't do that without ruinous consequences to them, to that people who does it, and to their society at large. And the story that I want to cover with you today, it's a news article off one of the websites that I peruse. It's called the UNZ Review, UNZ, UNZ Review. Has an eclectic assortment of real news on it. And it talks about this Dollar General. Here's the headline is Dollar General employee shoots and kills gun-toting black robber. The family of the dead robber claims that was wrong for that clerk to shoot my brother in the chest. Yes, he's robbing them, but oh well. There was a guy back in the days named Dale Carnegie. He was an American educator. I got a couple of his books, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I can never get this quote right because I'm going off the top of my head here. But he said that the world judges you in 4 ways and 4 ways only. It judges you on how you look, how you act, what you say, and how you say it. Now, the whole world is looking at us, and this is what they are judging us on. They are judging us on our behavior, our lack of display of the common, the basic requirements of civilization. And like I say, please forgive my tone. I don't mean to preach. I'm really trying to teach and trying to reach. But this kind of stuff, it eats away at you. And I hate to even see it. And I know everybody else out there listening to the sound of my voice, maybe even looking at the video, hates to see it too. This is vexatious. So I'm going to go into this story. Guy by the name of Roosevelt Rapley entered a Dayton area Dollar General store. He pulled out a firearm and started demanding money. Now, one of the store clerks was a concealed carry permit holder, and he was legally armed. So it says here, once the suspect, this Rapley guy, pointed his firearm at the clerk drew his own weapon and fired, striking the subject in the chest. Rapley returned fire, hitting no one. Before stumbling outside and then collapsing, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Now, this is what the clerk that shot him called 911 and said, he pointed a gun at me and I had a firearm on me. So I pulled my firearm and I shot him in self-defense. Now, I have seen and heard black people all over the United States when talking about similar situations as this, say that it was racism. But let me hip you to something. As somebody who was a concealed carry permit owner, someone who had a license to carry a weapon concealed, you take the class, right? You go to school for your concealed carry permit. It's in Texas, where I'm from. I think it was a 10-hour course that we went to on a Saturday. And the reason it's 10 hours is because they go over the law, what the Texas Penal Code is regarding self-defense. Now, if you're not familiar with firearms, and if you're not familiar with the law surrounding firearms and how to use them safely, one of the first things that you do, one of the 4 universal rules of firearms ownership, is that you do not point a weapon at something that you do not intend to kill or destroy. So as someone who is familiar with that rule, if someone points a firearm at me, I have to assume they are fixing to kill or destroy me. Because the first rule is you treat every gun like it's loaded, and therefore you do not point that weapon at someone unless you intend to kill them or destroy them. And when they say destroy, that usually means property. So you notice what the white store clerk said, and it's irrelevant what race he was. The guy pointed a gun at it. He said, when he pointed his gun at me, I felt in danger for my life, in fear of my life, and I shot him back before he shot me. That is textbook self-defense. But now this guy, Roosevelt Rapley, his sister comes on TV and says that it's the clerk's fault, basically. He said he, meaning my brother, has some responsibility, but not all the responsibility. Right is right and wrong is wrong. This is a quote. This is his sister saying this. Right is right and wrong is wrong. Yeah, he's got some responsibility, but it was wrong for that clerk to shoot my brother in the chest. Yes, he's robbing them. Oh, well. Call the police. That's what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to take matters into your own hand. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, if you're black and you ever feel like people look down on you, if you're of African descent and you ever feel like this world looks at you in a negative way, that, ladies and gentlemen, is why. It's because we so oftentimes seek to exempt ourselves from the standards of civilized behavior. And then when we exempt ourselves from the standards of civilized behavior, we then turn around and get upset when people have to feel that they're threatened and they have to defend themselves against our uncivilized behavior. Now, don't give me no excuses about this, that, and the other. That's not racism. I know this gentleman was probably poor, struggling in the hood, living hard. It ain't all good in the hood. We all know. But that don't give you the right to go rob a store. And if you rob a store and point a firearm at someone, and if that person is someone who is trained in the use of firearms and understands the law, the first thing they're going to think when you point a weapon at them is, oh, my God, he is fixing to kill me. Why? Because you don't point a weapon at something unless you intend to kill it. Anytime someone points a firearm at you, you are within your right to defend yourself. And for his sister, Roosevelt Rapley's sister, to be like saying he's got some responsibility, but not all, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And that was wrong for that clerk to shoot my brother in the chest. Yes, he was robbing them, but oh well. Oh well. You was pointing. It's not even the fact that he was robbing them. To me, it's the fact that he pointed a weapon at him. When you point a gat at somebody, you are saying, I'm about to kill you. Anybody with weapon training understands that. And that's why you shoot back. Because you don't want to die, not because you're racist, not because you want to kill somebody, not because it's open season on black male lives, not because Ta-Nehisi Coates say, oh, we disrespecting and crushing black bodies in this civilization. No, it's because black bodies so often in this civilization don't act like they belong to this civilization. And when you step outside the boundaries of civilized society, you can't be upset when people fear for their lives and take you out first. There's no other excuse for it, and there is no other way to look at it. Either you want to get better and you want things to happen to improve in our community, or you want to keep making excuses. And by the way, if you have friends, so-called allies, that's the way the leftists like to talk. I'm an ally to the black community. If your ally is telling you that you ain't got to follow the basic rules of the civilization and the society in which you dwell, then I would strongly urge you to reconsider whether that person is an ally, whether that party is an ally. All of our ancestors, all of our the backbone of what has been black civilization in America, the black community in America, have always told us to stand up straight, hold our head up, follow the laws, and be upstanding citizens. Get a good education and lift yourself. Malcolm X, my boy, Frederick Douglass. Start naming some people. Marcus Garvey. Go back. You don't believe me? Check them out. If you read their books and see. If you don't want to read, listen to their speeches and check out what they're saying. They ain't saying make excuses for your lack of behavioral standards. They saying stand up and do right. Be upstanding, upright people. And this, like I said, when you start perceiving that somebody in this society or somebody in the world is against you and this, that, and the other, racism and stuff, I have a principle that I call the pointing principle. It's something that served me well my whole life. And I don't know where I got this from anymore. And you've probably heard of it too. But I call it the pointing principle. And that is when you point your finger at somebody and blame, oh, you did this and you did that, realize that there are three fingers pointing right back at you. You're pointing over here at the white man, but you got three fingers pointing back at yourself. Jesus said the same thing in the Bible. Jesus said, don't be trying to pull the mote out your neighbor's eye when you got a big old 2x4 in your eye. That's what he was talking about. Upholding the standards of civilization, judging yourself and living up to your own standards first. The same standards you want to apply to other people, you got to live up to them. When I talk about the pointing principle, I say you point at somebody, you got three fingers pointing back at you. Well, those three fingers, you could break it down into, it almost corresponds with what Dale Carnegie was saying when people judge you by how you look, how you act, what you say, and how you say it. Those three fingers pointing back at you, you need to analyze yourself and say, how do I look right now? Do I look the way I am supposed to look? Am I dressed appropriately? Am I acting appropriately? Am I speaking appropriately? Am I on time? Have I done anything wrong that would cause this situation? If you fail to do that, then you're analyzing the situation from the standpoint of a victim mentality person who won't take responsibility for their own actions. I can honestly say that in my life, I've been in some scrapes. I've been in some good things. Some good things have happened to me. Some bad things have happened to me. I've been on the mountaintops. I've been in the valleys. And almost every time I was in the valley, it wasn't the white man. It wasn't even another black man. It was me. I cannot think of anything in my life that went wrong where it wasn't actually my fault. Sometimes at the moment I acted like it wasn't my fault, but when you look back on it, if you're worth your salt, you'll look back on it and be honest with yourself and say, yeah, that was me. I did that. And I'm not saying that we live in a perfect society. Please, nobody, don't even, think that I'm trying to say that. I understand that because we are imperfect human beings, we live in an imperfect society. However, I cannot think of another society on this planet that currently exists in real life that's more perfect than the United States is. And you can't either, because if you would have moved there. You'd be trying to get out of this hellhole, but it ain't too bad of a hellhole, is it? Because ain't nobody trying to leave, but everybody seems to be trying to get in. That's real talk right there. And like I say, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I ain't trying to preach, I'm trying to reach. But man, sometimes you just got to get it off your chest. And that right there, I just cannot understand how this person, this man's sister, would look at him. And I'm looking at his picture here in this article. Look like he got a tattoo on his face, one of them little teardrops or something. It might just be a blemish. I can't tell. Not a very good picture. But the cat looked like a felon. Remember, you get judged by how you look. Not whether you're black or white, but how you look. Do you look like an upstanding person? Do you look like an honest, trustworthy person? We all wear uniforms. I noticed this one time I was I was going to a language class back at the University of Texas at San Antonio, UTSA they call it. And I was sitting there in my truck getting ready to go to this class. I think it was an advanced Spanish class or something like that. This was about 2005, I guess it was. It was like 2008. Anyway, I'm sitting there and I'm watching these young college students. They're all walking. Now I'm an adult. I'm fully grown at the time. I'm not a student anymore. So I'm watching all these young college students go back and forth to class. And I noticed they all looked the same. Even whether they was black or white or Hispanic, whatever the case was, they had on what I realized to my shock as a military man, they had on uniforms as well. Every little white girl that walked to class had on some short booty shorts with some kind of name across the back. I don't know, baby fat, baby, whatever. I don't know what it was saying, but they had, those too short shorts on, kind that my daughter can't walk out the house with something written on the back. They had a ball cap on with a ponytail coming out the back or some variation thereof. And they, backpack on a certain way. And I realized that's a uniform. Uniform means one form, the same form. Everybody's walking around with the same form on, the same format. Every black male that passed me had some kind of sagging pants on, some kind of sneakers, some kind of hat put on in any way other than the actual way that it was intended to be worn. That was a uniform. Every white guy you see got some boots on of some sort, some too tight Wrangler jeans and some kind of cowboy hat. Half the time they be trying to emulate us wearing their hats backwards, but a lot of times they had on like real tree camouflage clothing and stuff like that. And I realized everybody out here is wearing their uniform. And then I was thinking, like, who chooses your uniform? Do most of these people even realize that they wearing a uniform? And what does your uniform signify? It signifies what team are you on. And that's why Dale Carnegie, when he was talking about that quote, he said, you're judged in 4 ways. One of those ways is how you look. That's what he's talking about, the uniform that you have on. Be very conscious of how you walk, how you look when you walk out the house. Are you wearing the uniform of street thugs? Are you wearing the uniform of thoughts? Yeah, I said thoughts. My daughter hit me to what that word meant a few years ago. I ain't gonna break it down, but y'all probably know what the acronym is. It's an acronym, THOTS. Is that the uniform you wearing? Are you wearing the uniform of a country boy, good old boy hunter? What uniform are you wearing? And if you're wearing a uniform, who is that's saying that you're on a team? What team are you signifying that you are in opposition to? If you're on one team, it's always another team. So if you got your uniform on and everybody else got their uniform on, there's some people out there that wear blue uniforms. Y'all heard of them, that thin blue line, the Popos, the Penelopes, the 50s, the 50s, the Rollers, Nap Jones. They wear a uniform too, a literal uniform. And when you wear certain uniforms, you all you're doing is signifying to those people that I'm on the opposite team from you. So I'm looking at this guy right here. He's got on his uniform. It's pretty clear. He looks like the kind of person that would run in and rob a store and point a gun at you and then have his sister come back and say, it's your fault for being scared that he was pointing a gun at you and defending yourself. It's not his fault for pointing a gun at you and robbing you. And like I say, I don't, if you look at Malcolm X would have told you the same thing. It's all about cleaning yourself up before you start worrying about everybody else and pointing fingers with your 3 condemning you. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, party people, I'm not going to hold you up too long. This was episode 11 of the North Star podcast. I'm Robert Jenkins coming to you live from Moon Mind Productions studio. Maybe not live, pre-recorded. And I hope I touched on something today that made you think. Hope I was able to put a little fire in your morning, your evening, your afternoon, whatever time it may have been. I know one thing, it sure felt good getting it off my chest. And now that it's off my chest, I feel a little bit more at peace. And because of that, I want to bid you 2 digits.